Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Gomes. I'm a Vedic astrologer of some 35 years experience almost. And I'm going to talk with you about the world, how it's reflected in Vedic astrology, and also how it affects you in your daily lives, how astrology interacts with you in your daily lives. Um, Last week I did a birthday chart for the United States. The presentation went on much longer than I wanted it to, and so I'm going to do a relatively brief, by my standards, presentation this week, and I hope you find that more endurable. The So sometimes I'll do those long run-on presentations, mainly because of of the urgency of a current event or something happening. But I think right now I'd rather focus on Saturn's retrograde, which, to be honest with you, I think is one of the more important events during the astrological seasons. Okay, so Saturn retrograde stays retrograde for a long time. It can run between 5 and 6 months retrograde status, and it just started today. So this is something which is um, not something I really focus on that much, but the Saturn retrograde essentially is a really important um, transit because it essentially affects us at a real world level because we're in Saturn. Because to be honest with you, we're in Saturn's world. Saturn rules the material world. Okay, so it rules um, the day, the day-to-day routine. Um, Essentially, the foundations of our world, the earth, the the day-to-day drudgery of the world, our aches and pains, our sorrows, our hesitancy to try new things, our speed to try new things. And also it can cause a great deal of frustration, delay, setback, but it also teaches discipline. So that's the beneficial aspect of Saturn. It teaches discipline, it teaches patience. So it's not entirely negative, but it is considered in Vedic astrology the benefic planets of the planets that make things easy, like Jupiter and Venus, and the waxing moon. The malefic planets are the planets that make things tough or problematic, like Mars, Saturn, Rahu, and Ketu, and the waning moons. Sun is considered to be um, somewhat somewhere in the middle. It's not really a malefic, it's not really a benefic. Mercury is malefic if it teams up with other malefic planets. It's benefic if it's by itself, or if it teams up with benefic planets. So both um, the sun, so the sun is really more like sun has a certain responsibility in the sky. It essentially gives life. It's like a furnace which is always functioning. It has a job to do and it just does it. So there's nothing inherently evil about it, but it can be difficult. It can be oppressive. It can be harsh. Okay. Saturn is, by definition, it's very structured. It works within very limited domains. Also, interestingly enough, I've seen Saturn as a really big influence in people with avant-garde or forward-moving tendencies. In Western astrology, that's mainly connected to its dual rulership of Aquarius with Uranus. But it's also something as well. Saturn is essentially um, the downtrodden um, or the people who labor. People who labor are usually looking for easier ways to do things. They're looking for new ways to do things. They're not, it's really not in their interest to perpetuate the status quo. So, and because if the status quo for Saturnian, heavily Saturnian individuals usually means they just have to work more and more and more. So, before I go on more with this particular Saturn explanation, I would like to say if you would like to contact me for lessons or for a reading, the best way to contact me is to either text me at 508-525-0001, or I'll repeat the number, 508-525-0001. My email address is Gary Gomes, G at gmail.com. So that's Gary Gomes, my name, all run together, Gary Gomes, G at gmail.com. So it's GaryGomes, G at gmail.com. Okay. So, getting back to the discussion, also, if you would, let me amend my thought. If you would please subscribe to the channel, that would be greatly appreciated. Comments are always welcome. I do read the comments. And also, if you would like to appear on the show for any reason, I am going to have uh, an old acquaintance who's just written a book on the show, I think next week now. And uh, I want to congratulate him and talk about the book a little bit. Christian Darshan, and he's a really nice guy and a very smart person. So I look forward to putting that on as a separate broadcast. So let's get back to Saturn. So Saturn has this kind of a when it's stationing direct, which it was over the past couple of weeks, it's almost impossible to get anything done with any finality. So you'll have these very, very weird breaks or interruptions or misunderstandings. Um, I personally can point out to around half a dozen things I thought were all set, and then at the last minute, the thing got canceled. These weren't personal appearances; these were things that had to do with um, deliveries or getting items fixed, or like I said, what I would call mundane but important tasks in life. So, and also I noticed the communications weren't going through as well. Now, communications are normally the sector connected with Mercury, but let's look and see if there's any influence of Saturn on Mercury. Okay, so let's pull up the chart and we'll get right into it. So I don't like these kinds of things because Saturn is in a trine to Mercury. Oops, hold on a second. It's not sharing. I got to make sure that you can see the chart. Now you can see the chart. So Saturn is now retrograde, 7 degrees, 43 minutes of Pisces. Before its retrogression ends, it'll head back into Aquarius just a little bit, and then it'll end its 2.5 year transit of Pisces. So, um, so you're going to have the Saturn Rahu conjunction in Aquarius as opposed to Pisces. That's not as bad as the Saturn Rahu conjunction in Pisces, and I'll let you know why. Basically, Saturn and Rahu are not really at home in Pisces. Um, the Saturn Rahu conjunction in Aquarius will actually lead to rather stunning um, technological advances because Saturn is in its own sign and Rahu is in sort of a co-ruler sign with um, with in Aquarius. So I would say by early next year, maybe even by later this year, you're going to see some rather stunning technological advancements, especially in the realm of artificial intelligence, but also probably in currencies, mainly because, and also in trade. And the reason I'm saying in trade is because Aquarius is an air sign. Also, some breakthroughs in physics, I would be so bold as to say right now, because physics as a field has been um, treading water for the past 60 years. Now, that's not an unusually long time for a science to be investigating one field, but it is a rather long time for a science to be investigating a field, especially considering the rapid development of the first half of the 20th century. So, so, so essentially, we're looking at new fields. We're looking at things like string theory and stuff like that, which if you're not familiar with, hasn't yet produced any replicable results. But it is part of the process of any science to investigate something. Um, but moving on to before it can either rule it out or accept it as a theory. So I'm not saying that string theory will be thrown out as an investigative science, but it's becoming less and less um, popular, let's say, just in general terms, from what I understand, from what little I understand of the field. Those of you who might be physicists out there or who follow that field more aggressively than I do, you can please feel free to correct me. But I think that this particular combination is, or maybe we're not at a sufficiently advanced state to look at alternate realities or string theory as being viable options right now. But this particular combination in Aquarius will be rather stunning, I think, in terms of the technological advancements we see and even the communications and intellectual advancements we see. One of the reasons I'm putting Aquarius in the trade sector is because it has to do with air trade. And so you'll see more emphasis placed on that, more emphasis placed on diminishing air trade or finding new ways to transport things, maybe even new breakthroughs in space exploration and also maybe not transporter technology, but maybe figuring out ways to um, get things from one space to another more quickly. So that will also be a result of the Saturn Rahu conjunction. The other thing that we're looking at right now, the current chart, we have Mercury in a trine to, to Saturn, so that can delay some communications. We also have Venus aspected by Saturn, which is another computer planet. My teacher, Mr. Rao, put computers under Venus's rulership, which was um, interesting for a lot of astrologers because at least one astrologer I knew viewed that as being rather odd because Venus is associated with luxury, with indulgence. But Venus is also associated with mathematics and physics. So if you look at a chart of, let's say, a chemist or a physicist, you'll also see a relative, or even a medical doctor, you usually see a prominent Venus. So all of the quote unquote practical sciences tend to have strong Venusian components to them because most of them are aimed at making life easier, aren't they? Okay, so computers make life easier. It's not necessarily a luxury. It makes life easier. It makes life less um, labor intensive. Okay, so Saturn is aspecting Venus. This will make it more difficult to do easy things over the past few months. Venus will leave this sign and enter Gemini in about 2 weeks. It's already in Gemini in Western astrology. And you'll see a Venus-Jupiter conjunction, which should be a kind of an expansive time for people. A lot of energy, uh, a lot of artistic um, interest coming up at that time. Maybe even movie viewership improving. And Mars is aspecting Saturn right now. It will continue to do so for the next 3 to 4 months. But right now, Mars is rapidly approaching K2, so you're seeing a lot of discussions get more vitriolic, or more certain of their dogma. But you'll also get some unexpected events happening. So the Mars K2 conjunction. Interestingly enough, K2 acts like a multiplier of Mars, but there's also something that a lot of people tend to forget, myself included at times. K2 can be that once it's won a battle, it just moves on to other things. It doesn't consolidate its position. It just moves on. I've done that, time to do something else. So K2 takes a delight. It can actually siphon off energy from a planet like Mars. So just in terms of things like white blood cell count, which is essentially ruled by Mars, the K2 Mars conjunction can affect our immune system pretty strongly. So you'll see a lot of people feeling weaker or more worn out or tired over the next um, few weeks. That'll lessen dramatically around July 31st, August 1st. Okay. And as a matter of fact, personally, I felt some bumps, some increases in energy because of where K2 is located in my chart. K2 is not, it really doesn't have that effect on me, but on some people it will. Some people will make them, especially if it's involved in their moon or their Mercury, it can lead to depression or anxiety. Okay. So all those things tend to be rather difficult placement for Ketu. Moon is with Rahu right now. So this week, a lot of people will probably feel like giving up or it's not worth it. Okay. So if you've been feeling depressed for the past couple of days, a lot of that has to do with Saturn aspecting Venus. As a matter of fact, over the past month, Saturn aspecting Venus because Venus makes us happy with our situation. If Venus is afflicted, it will tend to cause problems with us feeling happiness. Now, this isn't universally true. Everybody's chart is a bit different, but it's just a general environment. Also, it'll make us worried about trade. It'll also make us worried about worried about financial prosperity. The Moon Rahu conjunction makes us convinced that people are covering things up on us or hiding things from us. Okay, so that's where that comes from a great deal. And Mars aspecting Saturn makes us want to know every detail about every single situation that we're involved in. So you can go from feeling okay one day to feeling sad. And as a matter of fact, the first 1, 2, 3, 4 days this week, up until around Wednesday or so, will make us feel sad or like we have to do a lot of extra work. Okay. And that's mainly because the moon will be transiting over uh, Rahu, first of all, between now and tomorrow, and between Tuesday and Wednesday, and maybe a little bit into Thursday over Saturn, over the planet Saturn. So the moon transits are very important as you go through every week. And so this can explain our mood much more clearly. Also, on the positive side, it can make us impatient to get things done or just frustrated and anxious to do things. Okay, so that particular combination is very strong for lighting a fire under ourselves and getting us to move and do things. But it won't be happily, okay, if I'm honest with you. Uh, so this Mars K2 conjunction is in the 12th house in this chart. Um, there is a lot of pressure internationally on real estate. It's um, going to lessen, I think, over the next couple of weeks. And that's a combination of factors. Number one, high interest rates, but number two, construction went way down during the COVID epidemic. And also, as part of that, we have this Mars Saturn aspect, making people really hesitant to take chances on new ventures. So building real estate is a new venture. Okay. So whenever you see these combinations in the sky, you know there's going to be just a little bit of anguish. There have been anguish, and also think about Saturn as a person who's either a very old individual or a very conservative individual having to change direction. Okay. So when Saturn goes retrograde, so the old person has, or the stuck in their ways person has been moving forward slightly over the past few months because Saturn's been moving direct. Now it's going to take a more conservative posture and say, I don't know if I want to go that far. I don't know if I want to make that change. I'm really just exhausted by all the possibilities. And that's essentially what the retrograde Saturn does. It tends to make us dig in a little bit more. For some people, especially since it's heading towards Aries or indirectly heading towards Aries, there'll be a real push to make big change between 2027 to 2020, 2030 roughly. So I think, this is only a temporary phenomenon, but it's going to be quite telling. And like I said, I think the main hope you have in terms of seeing something really positive develop. And as a matter of fact, I've seen what I would call a lot of anti-progress videos on YouTube lately. That just may be my personal experience. And when I say anti-progress, the idea that humanity really hasn't progressed at all. We really haven't come forward at all. It's just all we figured out how to do things faster, but not better. And while I fundamentally disagree with that position, um, and there is evidence to indicate we're not really better as human beings than we were a few hundred years ago, there is also evidence to suggest that we're more alert and more knowledgeable than we were several hundred years ago. So I can't be too pessimistic. I can't be too, um, it's not in my nature to be too pessimistic that humanity overall is moving forward positively. I think the problem we run into is when we start comparing ourselves to some ideal that we start getting disappointed in ourselves, or we start feeling hopeless about ourselves, that we can't do anything about our situation. But sometimes the main thing to do is just, at least for a time, to rest and prepare ourselves for the next um, improvement, for the next iteration of effort. Okay, because if you don't give yourself a chance to rebuild your muscles from effort, you'll eventually give into fatigue. You'll eventually wear yourself out. So it isn't a matter of like sliding into laziness. It's strategic rest. Okay, that's just my suggestion to a lot of people. Right now is a time of strategic rest. Okay, at least until early August. Okay. It doesn't mean you don't go to work or you don't pay your bills or you don't do any of those things you're supposed to do. Mars is aspecting the moon. You know you're going to have to do those things, okay? And Mars forces the moon to act, but there's this feeling of, like I said, going into this cluster, and I'll be grateful when the Kalasarpa Yoga is done. That's around August 1st, when Mars moves into, or actually it'll be earlier than that, when Mars moves past K2. Um, and you'll see a little bit of, so this will be within about 2 weeks of the outside. Mars will start to be more aggressive, more action oriented, more pushy. Okay. So again, don't get discouraged. This week has a potential for discouragement. The other thing is, again, be really careful traveling, just in general. Be really careful. Um, and governments, be really careful about how you beat up on your people. That's diminished because there's no longer combustion between Jupiter and the sun. And there's a little bit more of an open dialogue. Now, interestingly enough, Sun and Jupiter are hemmed in by benefic planets. Okay, so that's a Shubha Yoga. That's the technical term for it. Shubha, Shupha, Katari, Katari, or Shubha, some people pronounce it. But basically, this particular, and as a matter of fact, the sun itself is hemmed in between two malefics. So that gives a certain sense of optimism. But mentally, there is anxiety because the moon is what rules our minds. Okay. So overall, just give yourself a little bit of a break. Um, you're not going to feel much better until early next week. but you are going to feel more optimistic, more like you have willpower and willingness to work. But over the next 2 days, next 2 to 4 days, it's going to be a little tough, okay? To be quite honest with you. It'll get a little bit easier towards the end of the week. And again, a little bit of a down pattern, especially economically, in uh, early 2014, around the 21st, and around the 23rd to the 25th, more optimism. But that'll also be around the time when Mars and K2 will be in conjunction. So again, it's sort of like just trying to think of the best way to put it it's usable to you. Be careful, don't be reckless, but at the same time, don't give up. Okay? It's not really there's never any right time to give up. There was a quote from, it's one of my favorite passages from the Bhagavad Gita. Uh, and I know I'm doing a horrible misquote, but Krishna is Arjuna's charioteer, and Arjuna's is essentially this is a very important book in Indian literature. It lays out the foundation of yoga. It lays out the foundation of the essence of God, uh, etc., or the essence of the reality, if you want to use that term. And it shows God. My favorite chapter is when God shows when Krishna shows all the manifest forms of God. Okay, that's my absolute favorite. But this one phrase, this one um, part is really, and it happens a little bit before that, is Arjuna. Arjuna is debating whether he should go to war against these desires. That's really the best way to put them, against these desires. Do they not have a right to exist? And the desires are his family members. So there are competing clans. So I'm giving you an interpretation of the Gita, let me say essentially. And he says, do they not have a right to life? Do they not have a right to exist? I do not want to kill. And he puts down his bow and his arrow. And Krishna says to him, you were born to fight. You must do your duty. You must fight. So everyone who comes into this world must struggle a little bit. Some people have to struggle a lot. But without the struggle, without the steps being taken, you'll find yourself just at stasis. And while there's nothing necessarily wrong with just being in stasis, it hurts your possibility of growth, of learning, of evolution. Okay. And that has long-term consequences. It has long-term consequences for when you get older, for when you uh, try things in life. So you have to meditate, yes. You have to accept certain things as they are, but you must also fight for what you want or what you believe. And you may not get what you want or what you believe. If you fight, but it's almost guaranteed you won't get it if you do not fight. And by fighting, I don't mean going out and beating somebody up. I mean striving. Okay. So enough of the sermon. Let's go on to the individual charts for the week. Okay, so this is striving, but also accepting that things are going to move relatively slowly over the next couple of weeks. Okay, as the Saturn retrograde gets more into focus. So for Aries, let's go to the individual signs now. For Aries, again, this will be increased expenditures for items perhaps you've already bought, or maybe reconsidering items, maybe returning items that you no longer need. Venus is in the second house, gives increased monetary growth. Jupiter and Sun are in the third house, so good ability to give advice for people. Mercury's well placed in the fourth house, gives good life at home, although there may be some repairs or some arguments with children. Sixth house, and children may be ill behaved. Sixth house is ruled by Mercury, so some communications issues. By the way, I didn't mention the media earlier. The media will still be um, kind of making up a lot of stuff in August, but we'll get to that in August. Okay. Um, they're already gearing themselves up for it right now, but they'll really be gearing themselves up for it in August. Um, and let's see now. In terms of gains, financial gains, but not enough to offset debts. But like I said, some things this sign may actually give up that are just costing you too much money. For Taurus, Saturn is aspecting the first house. This is a good combination. Saturn and Venus are friends. It gives a controlled workflow. Saturn on Venus is a little bit depressing, but at least the sign can see that it's making some progress. Jupiter and Sun, so this is May 15th, June 15th. Aries was April 15th to May 15th. For Gemini, for Taurus, excuse me. So again, some good potential for financial gains. Maybe a little bit of timidity in pursuing what you really want because Mercury's a benefic in the third house, but good communication skills. And K2 and Mars are in the fourth house. Maybe some needed repairs at home, but also some danger of car accidents, so be very careful driving. And also danger in relationship life because of increased arguments. We have a Rahu Moon conjunction in the 10th house, so career life will expand, but finances will expand slowly for Taurus this week. For Gemini, we have Jupiter, Sun in the first house, so there'll be a lot of focus on relationship, a lot of focus on career. Career is moving slowly because of Saturn in the 10th house, aspecting Venus, which is one of the signs connected with wealth for this particular chart. So again, Venus, your financial situation for Gemini this June 15th to July 15th will improve in August. It will improve markedly in August. You'll be working very hard, but it will improve markedly in August. But over the next couple of weeks, it'll stay a bit stagnant. K2, Mercury moves into the same sign with K2 within about 10 days. So this sign will be more inclined to be more political, to do whatever it needs to do to get what it wants. And so that should be an improvement for the sign. And maybe some dishonesty in relationship life, though, if I'm truthful. Um, Seventh house, Lord, is Jupiter. There's a lot of focus on relationship life, but it's a little bit calmer right now. This sign will feel like luck has abandoned it, at least right now, and until the middle of the next week. It'll show some improvement, but really not until the end of the following week. For Cancer, this is July 15th through August 15th. You have a nice placement of Venus in the 12th house, although it's aspected by Saturn. And so this will give, again, some reconsideration of debt, uh, but not as drastic as Aries was. And overall, Venus in the 12th house is good for saving money. The sun will be more focused on saving money. Um, and I think for Cancer, you're going to see a lot of focus on financial growth. This is July 15th to August 15th, as I said before. Focus on financial growth, maybe even having to spend more money or pay more money to the government, excuse me. K2 and Mars are in the second house. It'll be more prone to arguments or fights. Let's see now. Moon is in the eighth house, along with Rahu. There'll be a feeling that people, they are sort of like a little bit down, but you'll be fascinated by figuring out where all these machinations are coming from. Investigating where people are trying to hold you back. Saturn's in the ninth house. That's actually not a bad placement. A little bit better for relationship life, maybe even return to relationship partners. And overall, Venus in the 11th house, good for gains. Jupiter, Sun in the 12th house. Gains come, but they go to the government. But this sign is very smart this month. Cancer is very smart this month or this week. For Leo, we have that Mars K2 Raj Yoga in the first house. Um, it's kind of interesting because there'll be unexpected or unusual gains for this particular sign. This is August 15th through September 15th. I've said this about President Trump's chart. President Trump uh, has a Leo rising, and so he's had a series of what I would call unexpected gains. He has had some loss of status, though, especially connected with the Epstein case. And also, there's still some concern about the tariffs not going the way he expects them to go. So we'll have to see how that all works out long term. This planet is going to be in his first house for another year. K2 is going to be, or this Graha is going to be in his first house for another year. Mars comes out of it within about 2 weeks. Mars comes out, so that Raj Yoga won't be there. But Leo is not necessarily a bad placement, but it can be kind of humiliating. Um, but his instincts will be very sharp. Okay, that much is true. So his instincts about so regardless of how you feel about Donald Trump as a human being or as a president, his intuition will be very sharp over the next year. I hate to tell you that, but that's true. And Mercury is in the 12th house in the chart. So this indicates gains from abroad. And Jupiter's in the 11th house. So again, full force. So again, you'll gain some authority, some luck from this combination. Venus is in the 10th house. So overall success at work is to be expected. Saturn is in the 8th house. You'll have unexpected or more um, people more stuck in their ways, fighting back against you. Rahu and Moon in the seventh house, you'll have allies actually dissatisfied with you or unhappy with you. This will be true for about another year as well. All right, let's go on to Virgo. I don't want to make this all about Donald Trump. I just, whenever I come to Leo, I always think about the current president's chart. And, if I were doing Barack Obama's chart, if I were doing this broadcast with Barack Obama, I would pay a great deal of attention to Capricorn. Okay, so that's that's how I do these things. Okay. Joe Biden, I paid a lot of attention to Scorpio. That was why I was saying he should watch out for his friends over the past couple of years. You may have noticed that. Uh, so Joe Biden has some untrustworthy characters in his house of friends. Okay. So let's go on to Virgo. Virgo is the first house ruler. Virgo's first house ruler is Mercury, excuse me. It's in the 11th house, good for financial gains. Not good for long-term relationships for this particular planet. And also some anxiety or worry about financial gains because of Moon Rahu in the 6th house. Saturn's in the 7th house. Possibly good for solid business relationships. Not quite so much for romantic relationships, but even possibly if you're attracted to older people. And Venus is in the 9th house. That's a good placement. The Saturn-Venus aspect for this particular rising sign is relatively lucky, so this should be a good week for Virgo. Sun and Jupiter in the 10th house, good for career life. Career life should produce some financial gains, but this Mars has ruler of the 3rd house and the 8th house in the 12th house. It actually creates a good condition for this chart, so there won't be as many enemies or as many setbacks for this particular chart for Virgo. This is September 15th through October 15th. For Libra, October 15th through November 15th. Libra's Lord is in the 8th house, so it doesn't have as much of a chance to express itself with this placement, even though Venus is good. It does give some unexpected gains from unearned income. Saturn's in the 6th house, and the sign is willing to work hard. It'll give good luck. The Moon and Rahu combination are in the 5th house. There's some thought about returning to a career you were dissatisfied with or unhappy with, mainly for financial reasons. And Mercury is in the 10th house, so it should give good gains through either writing or communication of some kind. Jupiter's in the 9th house, along with the Sun, good for financial gains and improvement. And career life should be connected with either travel or unseen subjects. Okay, so not a great chart for this side for money, but like I said, unexpected earnings come out during this particular time because of the Mars K2 and in the 12th, in the 11th house. And also because Venus is the first Lord in the 8th house. For Scorpio, this lasts from November 15th to December 15th. This will be the sun sign Scorpio. So anybody who knows the Vedic chart and knows where their sun, moon, or rising sign or is can use this chart for those things as well. Okay, for the moon and rising sign. Scorpio has Venus in the 7th house in its own sign, so that's gives what's called the Malavya yoga, so it's a like producing yoga for Scorpio, especially in relationship life. But relationship life will seem to move very slowly or very steadily There'll be some dissatisfaction with learning and with home life because of the Moon Rahu conjunction. And I'm feeling that career life essentially has no limits, especially right now, but even over the next couple of years. We have Mercury in the ninth house. That's good for financial gain for this sign. And Sun and Jupiter are in the eighth house. So this sign won't feel a lot of confidence really until about 3 days from now when the Sun enters, about 2 days from now when the Sun enters uh, Cancer in the Vedic charts. So let's go on to Sagittarius. Sagittarius has the Lord of the first house in the seventh house, along with the Sun. So that should be good for career life and luck. Also good for long-term relationships. Venus is in the sixth house. It's the Lord of the sixth house in the sixth. So this should give a little chance of diseases and also some gains or financial gains through hard effort. Saturn is in the fourth house. So there will be a little bit of distress uh, connected with home life, so delays or diminishments in satisfaction, maybe delays in deliveries or car expenses. Moon and Rahu are in the third house. That's basically not a bad placement. Um, a lot of enemies will be frustrated from this placement. Mercury's in the eighth house. Mercury rules the seventh and the 10th houses of careers and business partnerships. And this particular placement is good for uh, new business relationships with people who investigate things or who go into depth on things. But it's typically not a really good placement for career, but it is a good placement for strategizing and for planning things out. You'll get an opportunity to implement some of your plans over the next couple of months. Also, I have to have you keep this in mind. Mercury goes retrograde around August 12th through 14th. So Mercury will be giving us some problems, communication problems throughout most of August. Okay. So for Sagittarius, not a bad chart, just a little bit of difficulty at home and a little bit of difficulty with communications. For Capricorn, Capricorn has Saturn in the third house. Great time to fulfill ambitions. And I've been seeing this for Capricorn for the past few months. A lot of dissatisfaction with money situation, but don't panic and don't blow your money on big investments or get rich quick schemes. This isn't a good placement for you, Capricorn, and this will be December 15th through January 15th. Sorry, January 15th through February 15th. Um, Sagittarius is January 15th through, sorry, Sagittarius is December 15th through January 15th. Capricorn is January 15th through February 15th. And Saturn retrograde is getting to May too. Okay. So let's see now. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, Mars aspects my moon, so I say things quickly without checking them. So that's what I blame it on. Okay. All right. So all right. So there's a rush to get things out. All right. So let's go back to Capricorn. Good for luck with children. Not so good for luck with government. Strong determination for this sign, though. And Mercury, maybe even somewhat good for relationship life, but more for communications and business partnerships, romantic relationships, not so good. For the rest of the chart, career life looks relatively good for this particular chart. And so you'll see an increase in career life and also financial gains, unexpected financial gains because of that Mars K2 combination. For Aquarius, we have the Rahu Moon conjunction, which I beat to death already. But that Rahu Moon conjunction is really important. Rahu upsets the moon like no other graha can. And essentially, it makes us anxious or worried or just um, wanting to control things maybe a bit too much. That can lead to really actually killing situations. If you just leave them alone, they'll take care of themselves. But it's not necessarily a bad trait, but a lot of people who have obsessive compulsive personalities or they want to control, maybe not the psychological trait, but controlling people have combinations that reflect this energy. Um, and Saturn is in the second house, so there is a feeling that money could be more free flowing than it has been. There is some good luck for monetary gains from the government and also from household and but again, relationship arguments with spouse or business partnerships is indicated by this placement. And let's see now. The other planet, Mars, is Lord of the 10th house. It's placed in the 7th house, so relationship partner or business partner will have a good deal to do with your career success. Venus is well placed in the 4th house as Lord of the Ninth. So again, this is a good placement for overall financial gains of this particular sign. Although again, as I said, there'll be a lot of anxiety about it. For let me get rid of the riz in my voice, or my voice, as you can tell, is losing some of its melodious quality. Okay, and that's because I've been stretching it too much. For Pisces has Saturn in it. It's the Lord of the so gains come and go quickly, uh, mainly because of children or because of past wants or desires. It'll be easy to buy things with this combination, but I would encourage this sign to hesitate and figure out if it really wants to buy these things or it's just doing these things habitually. Venus is in the 3rd house, so good diplomatic skills, a lot of humility indicated by that placement. Jupiter and Sun are in the 4th house, and this combination indicates renewed gain in status at home, some luck. Mercury is in, especially in terms of long-term relationships, and also in terms of home life. Mars and Ketu are in the 6th house. So again, you have to be careful about accidents, about driving in particular. Just really watch the roads. And finally, the Lord of the 7th house, we've said, is in the 5th house. So again, good gains through relationship partners. Go on to the rest of the chart. Jupiter, the Lord of the 10th house of career, and Mars as ruler of the 9th house of luck are both well placed, although you have to watch out about people talking behind your back at work, mainly because Mars is with K2 or trying to cause drama in the workplace. And I think that's about it for the signs. Rahu Moon in the 12th house in Pisces. Again, not good, just obsessive spending. So try to curb that. Let's go to the time-space change chart. to get this enlarged. Excuse me, I'm sorry. It's not you, it's me. It literally is me because I'm taking some medication to address, I would say, a relatively unserious problem, but it's made me more sleepy. Right. So we have Moon. So as we start from the left of the map, which is where I always do, we have Mercury over Hawaii and over Alaska. So that indicates there may be some resolution of some land disputes. Moon is in Alaska. It was interesting because the budget deal was reached last week, mainly because of what the Alaskan senator is saying. She wanted the budget fixed, but uh, so the bill were good for Alaska. So it's interesting that moon line comes through in terms of changing people's minds. Venus and Rahu are together in the northwest, around Washington State, Oregon State, kind of influencing Nevada and California. And Mars is also running. So we'll talk about Mars in a second. So this can give the potential for some financial upsets or financial scandals, especially around Los Angeles and California, but even up into Washington State and maybe even touching into Idaho. So we'll see what happens with that. Also, some scandals in Nevada around Reno and further south. We have a Rahu line, Mars line. So fighting and domestic scandals and political scandals all the way down into Arizona, Mexico, all the way through Utah, Idaho, and up into Montana. So all these lines are kind of intersected. By the way, I was wrong. Mars is the line that's intersecting up here in Washington State and also into Canada. And in Rahu, as far as I know, the situation in Alberta has not improved. Canada is still a part of the country is still kicked off with the central government, and they've been having trouble coming to an agreement, from what I understand. There's a Saturn line running right through central United States, Nebraska, Kansas, North Dakota, South Dakota. I'm sorry, North Dakota, South Dakota, yeah, Nebraska, Oklahoma, and Mexico, where we had those floods. This is close to where we had those floods in Texas, and there may be some um, strife or depression or bad weather events in Mexico. Jupiter line is passing over um, basically Wisconsin, Minnesota, Indiana, and down into um, I have to look at this. Looks like Arkansas and Louisiana. So this entire region will see a lot of court action. This part of Canada will see a lot of legal action as well during this particular period, and a lot of government involvement. The Sun line is running through um, close to Montreal, down through New York State, down through Washington, D.C., down through Cuba, down through Venezuela or Peru and barely touching Chile. So essentially, this means a rather situation with the government. The government essentially changing its mind a lot about what it wants to do, especially in those regions. For we have a Mercury line running through down through Brazil, touching on Uruguay. So that should give increased communication about that part of the world, increased knowledge about that part of the world. There's a moon line running through Rio and running through Latin America. That um, and especially the state of Brazil and maybe even Uruguay. We have a lot of news coming out of that part of the world, a great deal. So, we have a Venus line running up um, through, oh, we have a moon line running through northern Brazil and um, Rio, and there's a Venus line. So this could indicate some flooding down here. Moon and Venus, Moon, Venus, and to a lesser extent Jupiter are kind of what I would call water-like planets. They have a lot of water they provide, and Venus is running up and hitting up against Mars. So this could cause some maritime issues. I was going to say maritime disasters, but I don't think that's true. And the next part is a Rahu line. So um, basically, we have these potentials for economic downturn happening in these potentials for natural catastrophes happening in Iceland, all the way down to the Azores and down to East Africa. Um, some potential for financial loss, excuse me, in um, Ireland, England, France, Spain, and Portugal in particular, and close to the small nation of Gabon. The next line we're looking at is a Jupiter line. Uh, is a Jupiter line, so some economic troubles over here are indicated. The line running up through Southwest Africa, or not Southwest, but the Western Jupiter. It's a blackout for a second there to regain my composure. This Jupiter line running over Italy, Greece, Eastern Europe, Ukraine, Russia. So that makes me guardedly optimistic they might be moving towards a peace, but again, this will be just because of the Mars K2 conjunction. I don't think we're going to see anything really significant happen until August 1st. Um, and that's an early date. Let's see now. The line coming out over Saudi Arabia, East Africa, Iran, and um, so at least from the chart, we should see some increased government control exercise in Turkey, in Ukraine, in Moscow, um, in Turkey, and Iran. And again, as I said, I'm not really sure about this, but maybe even changes in the government in Iran doesn't necessarily mean the Muslim, um, the fundamentalist Muslim government will go out. But I think you're going to see some shifts in office in that country very, very soon. Um, we have a Mars in a Rahu line passing over um, Ladakh, I'm sorry, Pakistan and close to Afghanistan. So again, some minor changes in government from that part of the world. And let me see now. We have some potential for fighting between India and Pakistan, although I hope that gets averted. Uh, Part we have is Saturn is aspecting um, passing through um, Bangladesh, excuse me, and eastern India, especially close to Bengal. And so that indicates weather catastrophes for that part of the world, or plane crashes for India, although I hope not. We have sun passing over China, Vietnam, Cambodia, so Singapore, and Indonesia. And I would expect to see more fighting over the next month or so. Uh, Last but not least, we have Mercury going over South Korea, over North Korea and South Korea, and hitting Australia, and also have the moon over Japan that can give a proclivity, um, especially in Japan, Philippines, um, Korea, and finally, let's wrap this up. We got a Mercury line going over Korea, so we'll hear a lot about Korea and Australia. And there's a Mars line going through Japan. And I hope no lives are lost from that Mars line. But it looks like there'll be either an accident or some kind of natural catastrophe hitting Japan and also Indonesia and Eastern Australia. Finally, we go over here. Um, let's go over to, okay, that's about it. So let me know if you have any questions or if you would like to make any comments. I'd be more than happy to honor them. And again, I gave you the 2 days to contact me. I hope you're all right. Have a good day. That's about it for this week. Um, I was looking for something else, but there's nothing else on the map. There is a Saturn line going over the Philippines. I'm sorry, over New Zealand. I should mention that. And a Venus line. So again, this can indicate some monetary scandal in New Zealand, as we've been hearing about for some time. All right. So that really is it for me. I want to thank you all for watching. I love you all. I do this in part for me, but I also do this in part for you that you can get. Um, what I would call a, a balanced, non um, dramatic presentation of what's going on astrologically. Uh, and see you next week. Thanks very much for watching. Again, I love you all. Please watch to the end. And comments, any suggestions, I'm more than open to them. Okay? Thanks a lot, folks. You have a great week. And again, there are still opportunities. You must fight, Arjuna. Okay? Have a good week. Bye, everyone.